At 0800 hours, 19 February 1945, tactical doctrine assumed that Company A, 1st Battalion, 28th Marine Regiment, 5th Marine Division, would land with standard automatic rifles, including 186 M1 Garand rifles, 24 Browning automatic rifles, and 12 standard .30 caliber machine guns. The pre-invasion loadout for each platoon specified precisely 220 rounds per rifleman, 1,200 rounds per light machine gun, and 2 medical kits per squad, supported by 6 issued flamethrowers for bunker clearing. Pre-battle logistics enumerated mortar sections carrying 36th E rounds, and each bazooka gunner issued 8 rockets. Dispersed demolitions men held 12 satchel charges per unit, with supply echelons positioned for 2-hour resupply cycles under anticipated moderate fire. Planners modeled their beachhead advance on projected rates of 30 meters gained every 12 minutes, with initial resistance expected to inflict less than 12% casualties during the first hour. Within the first 15 minutes, radio logs recorded incoming mortar fire that exceeded 300 impacts per kilometer, resulting in a 19% immediate casualty rate, far surpassing projections. At 0900 hours, Company A's left flank stalled, registering 31 wounded of 120 men, and requests for stretcher bearers increased by 34% as incoming fire intensified. Medical officers issued triage under direct observation from defensive positions, marking a deviation from earlier operational models. Planners noted breakdown in landing interval adherence due to heavy resistance. Japanese pillboxes and blockhouses, positioned atop 92mm reinforced concrete, with steel cupolas tested to withstand up to 1,800 psi blast pressure, formed an interlocking defense matrix. Each machine gun port was shielded by 16mm steel, and firing apertures measured 120mm widths, minimizing exposure to suppressive fire. Winds gusted at 22 knots from 275 degrees, visibly shifting black volcanic ash in surges. The geometry of pillbox placements presented kill zones up to 58 meters deep under clear lines of fire. Defensive interlocks produced enfilade at 30-degree spread. For each 15-meter segment seized by Company A, Marine artillery fired an average of 1,800 rounds, with aerial spotters confirming 61% impact accuracy. Over 21,000 rounds of .30 caliber expended by 1,100 hours, with only 43 meters of black sand gained at the cost of 47% unit casualties. Naval gunfire support, despite 1,400 shells, landed in grid 141 degrees north, saw only 12 meters cleared per 1,000 expended rounds. At 10:42 hours, Corporal Tony Stein completed his first barefoot ammunition run, exceeding all predicted logistical parameters under sustained fire. The designated landing coordinates for Company A, 1st Battalion, 28th Marine Regiment, were 24 degrees, 46 minutes north, 141 degrees, 19 minutes east on the southeastern beach of Iwo Jima, facing Mount Suribachi. The company's muster roll documented 205 enlisted Marines, 8 attached Navy corpsmen, and 6 commissioned officers. Formations advanced behind 9 Sherman M4 A2 tanks, with 5 DUKW amphibious trucks deployed for supply shuttling. Heavy weapons sections fielded 3 M2 heavy machine guns and 2 81mm mortar teams. Initial assault groupings split into 4 12-man squads and 2 BAR teams, 4 runners per platoon relaying messages to higher headquarters. All movement was coordinated under direct radio control from the battalion tactical net. Japanese defending force at the designated sector totaled 310 men from the 312th Infantry Battalion, with bunker complexes hardwired into rearward command at grid 24 degrees, 46 minutes, 25 seconds north, 141 degrees, 19 minutes, 17 seconds east. Surveys revealed 19 pillboxes, most with 3.2 meter thick ferroconcrete roofs and 2.4 meter inner breastwork. Trench lines extended to a depth of 2.1 meters and incorporated 93 meters of covered passageways, linking 5 major weapons emplacements. Japanese sappers had prefabricated landmine belts at 42-meter intervals, interspersed with anti-personnel mines and barbed wire. Each position laid out 180 sandbags per gun pit using slit lamp guards for night fighting. Company A's attack was supported by a pre-stocked 5,100 rounds of 30 caliber for each AN/M 2 and 30 caliber machine gun, each M1 Garand issued with 168 rounds loaded in 8-round en-bloc clips and 5 high-explosive 60mm shells per mortar team. Fuel reserves for the armored vehicles measured at 120 gallons per tank, enabling a maximum unrefueled range of 67 miles. Medical resupply was staged 0.78 miles offshore, with emergency water cans stacked 10 gallon per unit at every 45-meter advance milestone. All logistical movements coordinated through Division Quartermaster Detachment on channel 44.2 MHz field radio. Visibility at 08:45 hours measured at 130 yards due to suspended volcanic ash. The ground viscosity index registered 3.2, indicating extreme stickiness, with ambient humidity maintaining surface cohesion. This created marathon-level exertion for ammunition bearers. Tactical disposition held Company A's left element clustered at the 41-meter beach mark, with right elements anchoring at the 17-meter rise north of Suribachi's lower slope. Japanese indirect fire forced prone movement every 6 meters. Smoke obscurance provided less than 18 seconds of masking. Artillery craters averaged 1.1 meters deep, impeding tracked vehicle progress and forming unintentional cover for advancing infantry. Initial contact was recorded at 08:17 hours, with the forward platoon crossing the 41-meter beach approach under sustained 30 caliber machine gun barrages. Infantrymen reported weapon barrels glowing after 110 rounds fired per man within the first 21 minutes of landing. The Stinger, Corporal Tony Stein's modified AN/M 2, operated at a cyclic rate between 1,200 and 1,500 rounds per minute, firing 30.06 ammunition through 100-round box magazines that depleted in 5 seconds. The bipod, adapted from a bar, absorbed recoil without excessive muzzle climb, even at engine crackle rates exceeding 2,000 RPM during suppressive fire. Sights repurposed M1 Garand irons, aligned over volcanic berms at a 23-degree trajectory. Japanese defenders activated counter-fire protocols by 08:26 hours, opening with Type 96 and Type 92 machine guns, whose documented rates reached 550 and 450 rounds per minute, respectively. Intense return fire from pillbox number 12 pinned 11 Marines behind sand berms at 49 meters. Direct mortar fire, set to impact at pre-measured beach markers, began at a staggered 30-second cadence, producing fragmentation radius up to 22 meters. The pillbox steel ports barely shifted as incoming rounds splattered harmlessly. Enemy sappers triggered tripwire mines to break up concentrated advances. Support requests were processed via SCR-536 radio at 08:29 hours. Battalion Command instructed 81mm mortars to deliver 48 high-explosive rounds over a 9-minute window, with average payload weights of 7.09 pounds per shell. Forward observers revised fire coordinates every 3 minutes to adjust for drifting wind, logged at 21 knots. Aerial spotting from a single WWII liaison aircraft surveyed Japanese fallback points from 117 meters altitude, transmitting color-coded drop markers reference to field map grid squares. Battalion communications recorded 12 status calls in the first 27 minutes, confirming functional radio integrity but degraded line quality under scripts. By 08:47 hours, at grid 24 degrees, 46 minutes, 13 seconds north, 141 degrees, 19 minutes, 10 seconds east, Company A had expended 1,700 rounds of 30-06 ammunition, 700 rounds of 30 caliber from standard machine guns, and 17 high-explosive mortar shells. The left flank reported status as mission capable, with 81 of 120 men remaining, 3 missing, and 14 wounded. Corporal Tony Stein's Stinger completed 2 full barrel changes under sustained rate of fire. Radio logs verified 9 extraction requests for wounded under direct threat, as Stein initiated his second barefoot ammunition run amidst ongoing hostilities. 08:05 hours, Gunnery Sergeant Samuel Hughes, operating with the 1st Platoon at grid coordinate 24 degrees, 46 minutes north, 141 degrees, 19 minutes east, identifies lateral erosion along an unreinforced section of volcanic crest approximately 63 meters east of Pillbox 17. Through his binoculars, he pinpoints a vertical fracture in the bunker's left embrasure. Its rusted steel shutters buckled from continuous 36-hour naval shelling, revealing a 0.6-meter aperture intermittently obscured by thermal distortion from recent high-explosive detonations. Hughes organizes 24-man assault teams, each equipped with 11-kilogram M1A1 Bangalore torpedoes, 25-pound M1917 A1 satchel charges, and M2 flamethrowers, breaking into pairs for rapid load dispersal. The added burden, totaling nearly 42 kilograms per team with personal arms, inclusive, necessitates stripping down to essentials: steel pots, sidearms, and 23-section Bangalore assemblies. Communication is established on SCR 300 radios for immediate forward artillery support, but limited to hand signals within 15 meters to avoid detection from enemy sniper nests, concentrated near the main traverse. Visibility at this hours extends to 21 yards due to smoke and drifting ash, masking movements but reducing target acquisition range. Japanese Type 92 machine gun turrets possess a traverse speed capped at 17 degrees per second, meaning rotating to track advancing Marines across the scoured depression requires a 1.6-second window at full sweep. Teams exploit this dead space, zigzagging low at 0.7 meters above ground, maintaining a dispersion interval of 5 yards to limit losses from incoming fragmentation rounds or concentrated automatic fire. Placement of the Bangalore charge is achieved by 08:08 hours under direct cover from the Stinger and a suppressive M1919A4 with fuses cut to precisely 14 seconds. The ignition mechanism is standardized friction wire, deploying a pyrotechnic starter composition of potassium nitrate, antimony sulfide, and ground glass to maintain reliability even after submersion in ash or partial exposure to rain-dampened conditions. A secondary check confirms proper seating against reinforced concrete before the team signals all clear for retreat distance. The detonation at 08:09 hours initiates a shaped blast, propelling overpressured debris at an initial velocity of 1,100 meters per second across the 3.5-meter gap, rupturing the pillbox front with a breach width of 1.4 meters. The assault team, rising simultaneously, surges forward at a sustained sprint of 5.6 meters per second, closing the exposed interior in under 3 seconds, as the dust column expands vertically and shrapnel fragments embed into the sand behind their entry path. The principal breaching device, the M1A1 Bangalore torpedo, measures 1.5 meters per section, each weighted at 4.2 kilograms, and utilizes a 1.9 kilogram filling of amatol with a detonation velocity of 4,700 meters per second. Paired in linked 6-meter assemblies, the combined charge provides a linear cutting force sufficient for defeating up to 9 centimeters of reinforced volcanic concrete. Satchel charges, steel-cased, weighing 11.3 kilograms per pack employ TNT as their main charge, optimized for directional energy release, and are calculated for a brisance index of 221. M2 flamethrowers supplement the breach using 20 liters of gasoline-benzene gel mix in a pressurized steel flask, capable of projecting a flame 22 meters at 1.5 liters per second sustained discharge, reaching thermal peaks of 1,000 degrees Celsius at nozzle contact. Japanese pillboxes at these coordinates are interlocked to form interdependent kill zones, each supported at 90 and 120-degree interlocking fire arcs, but the design's reliance on overlapping MG, 42, and Type 92 machine gun coverage strains when confronted by simultaneous linear breaches. The observed structural discontinuity along Pillbox 17's left flank generates a 44-degree sector where convergent fire fails to achieve mutual support, creating a temporary dead zone. The defensive field's lower traverse rates, compounded by the restrictive crossfire geometry due to adjacent volcanic boulders, force defenders to rotate gun barrels fully to re-establish coverage, exposing embrasures for direct assault and reducing effective suppressive overlap by nearly 21% at breach initiation. During the breach, the M2 flamethrowers' chemically thickened stream saturates the interior, igniting spent propellant residues and ammunition stocks. The exothermic combustion reaction driven by a 60-40 gasoline-benzene mix achieves localized heating in excess of 1,000 degrees Celsius within 2.3 seconds, instantly degrading the internal air quality and incapacitating occupants through superheated fuel mist inhalation. The duration of effective flame projection, calculated at 13.2 seconds continuous fire per tank, necessitates prompt follow-on entry due to rapid exhaust of available gel fuel. The M2's operating pressure, regulated at 2.1 bar, requires precision trigger control to avoid premature emptying before full interior saturation is accomplished. Simultaneous deployment of the 11.3 kilogram TNT satchel creates an overpressure event exceeding 241 pounds per square inch within the enclosed pillbox volume. The primary blast wave's radius extends to 8.5 meters, with lethal fragmentation propagating up to 12 meters from point of detonation. Post-detonation forensic examination reveals steel fragments embedded at depths of 41 millimeters in surrounding sediment, confirming both the satchel's designed armor penetration effect and its ability to disrupt internal concrete baffle structures, resulting in catastrophic compartment failure. Excessive overpressure also disables stored Type 97 grenades and secondary charges, neutralizing counterattack capability within 5 seconds of initiation. Radio logs between 08:09 hours and 08:13 hours, as relayed on SCR 300 Channel 3, verify a rapid expansion of the breach corridor to 14 meters at maximum width, facilitating 2-squad movement without sequential stoppage. Signal logs detail real-time location markers, confirming movement speeds peaking at 5.5 meters per second during the initial surge and subsequent rise in supporting fire orders called from Company A on 141.3 megahertz. Enemy radio intercepts on 93.6 megahertz reflect delayed coordination attempts with no effective countermeasure reported within the first 240 seconds following breach, allowing U.S. forces a critical window for exploitation and sector penetration. As the assault teams cleared the initial breach, they ascended the steep 9.8-meter embankment toward Pillbox 17's rear at a gradient exceeding 28 degrees, reaching the upper parapet in 42 seconds, under scattered rifle and machine gun fire. The rapid ascent was impeded by both volcanic glass scree and scattered debris from earlier bombardments, reducing acceleration to 3.2 meters per second past the halfway mark. Enemy soldiers mounted a sporadic but uncoordinated defense, deploying hand grenades at distances under 8 meters, but impact was mitigated by the team's continued movement along the shallowed flanks, dispersing return fire and preventing massed resistance at the bunker's exit point. Observers at base coordinate 24 degrees, 46 minutes north, 141 degrees, 19 minutes east, documented the assault's forward momentum as critical in preventing reinforcement from adjacent firing sectors. Within the first 95 seconds following breach, Company A reported 4 immediate casualties, including 1 fatality from a secondary fragmentation burst, and an 18% reduction in available small arms ammunition. The expenditure rate for support weapons, primarily the modified Browning AN/M2, Stinger and M19, 19-4, rapidly depleted on hand. 30 caliber reserve boxes with 700 rounds expended in the opening 2-minute suppression window. Radio logs at 08:12 hours, Record Company Headquarters, issuing an updated order. All teams to consolidate at breached pillbox and prepare for lateral exploitation east. Simultaneously, 1 squad receives directive to sweep adjacent trench works as secondary explosive charges, and casualty evacuation resources are redirected forward, confirming a shift in battalion focus to exploit the newly established vulnerability before enemy reinforcement. The rapid neutralization of Pillbox 17 resulted in the destruction of the primary enemy node on this sector, with follow-up teams confirming 11 bunkers compromised, 3 structurally collapsed, and 8 rendered inoperable through blast or fire. An estimated 28 Japanese defenders were killed, with 7 taken prisoner during the immediate sweep, their status relayed via SCR 300 at 08:15 hours. Strategic exploitation of the breach created a hemispherical gap extending 21 meters at its widest, permitting the 2nd and 3rd squads to redeploy for flanking maneuvers against the 17,000-strong Japanese garrison's outer perimeter. U.S. forward observers marked the event as a critical inflection point, noting an immediate drop in coordinated machine gun crossfire and submission of 2 white flags unusual for Iwo Jima engagements within 11 minutes of initial breach, leading directly to the next phase's broad-scale push eastward. Did you know that Marine supply doctrine for Iwo Jima was built around set intervals for ammunition resupplies, with the assumption of protected lines and constant mule train support? In reality, the 5th Marine Division's beachhead supply parties quickly buckled under intense mortar and small arms fire. Those men tasked as runners sometimes averaged only 2 trips per day rather than the planned 6, with up to 30% losses during the highest fire periods. After action reports recorded up to 18% of the initial assault wave's machine gunners completely out of ammunition just 90 minutes after H-hour, a logistical failure, unanticipated, in training or official manuals. Captured Japanese documents later revealed enemy positions had been rationing heavy machine gun belts for over 18 days prior to February 19, 1945, due to Allied air and naval bombardment disrupting their depot links. One garrison order from Colonel Masuo Ikeda, recovered by burial detail, specifies each weapon post shall restrict discharge to a single belt per hours. All excess fire is forbidden. Did you know that as the Marines' Stinger weapon wailed, some pillbox defenders could only return fire with bolt-action rifles, a fact sparsely mentioned in post-battle assessments, but alluded to in Sergeant Kumataro Uno's diary. Our guns are parched and silent, while the Yankees' air gun spits endless iron. The black Iwo Jima sand concealed unique perils. Few realized that the volcanic surface was so abrasive, it rapidly destroyed standard-issue boot soles. That day, Tony Stein's barefoot sprints were not bravado. They were necessity after his boots filled with fine sand and lost traction. Diary fragments from a Navy Beachmaster record, inside a single hour, over 50 pairs of boots, pitched or ripped, the sand swallows men's feet or shreds their laces. This abrasive environment also contributed to rapid overheating and jamming of automatic weapons. One overlooked reason the Stinger was both daring and dangerous to wield. What are the odds that a single Marine, barefoot and unprotected, could survive 8 repeated trips through the open under as concentrated a field of Japanese fire as any in the Pacific? When war game analysts revisited the Iwo Jima assault in 1972, they calculated the probability of crossing 36 meters of exposed sand, 8 times under sustained machine gun fire at less than 1 in 2,500. The fact that one Marine not only survived, but altered the course of a platoon attack is a statistical anomaly owed as much to luck as to skill and courage, a rarity almost never matched in WWII records. In the immediate aftermath of the battle, official histories published by the U.S. Marine Corps in the late 1940s and early 1950s glossed over unauthorized weapons and innovation. The Medal of Honor citation for Corporal Tony Stein described his resourcefulness and devotion to duty, but omitted technical details about the Stinger. Early unit histories focused on discipline, valor, and coordinated movement, and downplayed the supply failures that forced improvisation. Accounts were filtered for public morale, and the legend of Iwo Jima emphasized iconic flag raisings and massed rifle fire, not technical outliers or statistical improbabilities. It wasn't until the era of Vietnam and shifting attitudes in the 1970s that classified or censored material on battlefield improvisations started coming to light. Declassification of logistical memos revealed the extent of ammunition shortfalls and recorded for the first time the heated debates among battalion officers about unauthorized battlefield engineering. Oral histories collected in the 1990s, long after the main participants had retired, uncovered first-hand testimonies of the Stinger's cobbled origins. These included squad diaries referencing Stein's aircraft monster, bringing personal innovation out from the edges and into mainstream historical analysis. The modern scholarly consensus recognizes the Battle of Iwo Jima as an exercise in extreme adaptation more than predictable doctrine. Historians today compare casualty figures that once credited overwhelming firepower with swift progress, such as the early 5th Marine Division reports tallying 1,006 wounded and 223 killed on day 1, to revised analysis suggesting misallocation and weapon breakdowns contributed to higher real losses now estimated at over 1,250 wounded and more than 350 killed in the opening 24 hours, with individual acts like Stein's standing out as crucial force multipliers unforeseen by planners. Tactically, the day Corporal Stein made his barefoot runs has been included as a case study in subsequent Marine Corps leadership and innovation training. Field manuals in the 1980s and beyond directly cite the necessity of flexibility under fire, the value of technical improvisation, and the importance of distributing automatic weapons at the lowest squad level. The inclusion of lessons from the Stinger incident marks a shift from rigid adherence to ordnance supply lists toward a more considered doctrine that encourages technical adaptation, now embedded in official after-action teaching. Before the war, Corporal Tony Stein had worked as a tool and die maker in Dayton, Ohio, where his focus was grinding metal to the tightest tolerances. Friends remembered him as methodical and quietly inventive, fitting together radio kits in his parents' garage. On Iwo Jima, these skills meant ingenuity under fire. In Stein's words, "I am used to making something from whatever is at hand." That day, the neatly ordered world of his pre-war job evaporated, replaced by desperate improvisation gripping the unfamiliar contours of his home-built automatic weapon, substituting precision with speed and trusting the oddity he'd created to do what no standard gun could. After the fury receded that evening, survivors described a soundscape punctuated by the constant clack of metal on metal, dropped ammunition boxes, shattered bipods, and the distinct high-pitched mechanical slap of the Stinger cooling down after extended bursts. The air was thick, not just with cordite, but with the burnt rubber of shredded boot soles and the coppery tang of spilled cartridge cases. One Marine would recall, "The sand crept into your skin, shell fragments and machine oil mixed with sweat. There was never a clean breath. Underfoot, traces of oil, black sand, and scorched cotton webbing marked where the desperate ammunition runs had begun and ended, invisible to the cameras, but indelible to the participants." A letter Corporal Stein began, but never mailed, survives in partial form. He described the landing simply, "It was noisier than you'd think, Pop. Sometimes you feel the ground moving first, not the shell you hear. Still, the boys from Dayton would laugh to see this machine gun I've got. Strange, but it works." Omitted from the draft were stories of barefoot sprints, of friends cut down mid-run, and of the overwhelming feeling that official doctrine was collapsing all around him. The letter remains focused on small technical triumphs, not the pervasive dread or chaos. Exhaustion was measured in ragged gulps of air, fingers blistered by heated receiver housings, and feet numb from both adrenaline and sand abrasion. Medical corpsmen recorded pulse rates routinely exceeding 150 beats per minute after each ammunition run, and at least 3 Marines, including Stein, required intravenous saline for dehydration or shock before 1800 hours. Photographs from later that evening show Stein's hands, cracked and blackened, gripping a canteen with the same intensity once reserved for fine machining work. Each run extracted another layer of endurance, leaving only raw nerves and a dull ache behind the ribs. The immediate tactical consequence of Corporal Tony Stein's actions on the 19th of February 1945 was the rapid penetration of heavily fortified Japanese lines on the southeast sector of Iwo Jima. In the 48 hours following the assault by Company A, supported by the suppressive firepower of the modified Browning AN/M2 weapon, Allied units seized approximately 1.8 kilometers squared of critical terrain, including 3 interconnected pillbox complexes and over 15 supply trenches. The neutralization of Japanese strongpoints enabled subsequent waves to establish supply dumps and forward casualty clearing stations, reducing exposure to sniper and mortar fire. Ammunition captured from overrun positions was quickly redistributed, allowing battalion-level advances to reach the slopes of Mount Suribachi ahead of schedule. Each round fired by Stein's Stinger enabled squad leaders to coordinate more aggressive movements, culminating in the rescue and extraction of 9 wounded Marines from previously isolated zones. The effective elimination of crossfire positions cleared sectors that had previously pinned down 2 full platoons for over 70 minutes, immediately shifting local superiority to American forces. On the operational level, the breach in Japanese defensive lines prompted an urgent order at 2040 hours from V Amphibious Corps headquarters for the 27th Regiment to reinforce exploited corridors. Intelligence received during debriefings resulted in a change of approach for battalions landing on D+1, with a directive to prioritize rapid movement and concentrated suppressive fire on identified pillbox lanes. The 2nd Battalion, 28th Marine Regiment, was tasked with creating additional breach zones north of Stein's advance, each modeled after Company A's tactics, with extended use of machine guns for direct fire support. The successful rapid advance convinced Rear Admiral Harry Hill and Lieutenant General Holland Smith to accelerate allocation of naval gunfire on western sectors, shifting battery priority from pre-planned bombardment to dynamic ground-to-sea coordination. Within 36 hours, the push secured both Anamoto airfield approaches, denying Japanese counterattack formations their key staging ground by D+2. Long-term, the Iwo Jima campaign's strategic momentum set the foundation for the final push toward mainland Japan. The capture of Mount Suribachi on 23 February was directly enabled by these early incursions, symbolized by the 28th Marine Regiment's flag raising. The collapse of coordinated Japanese resistance in the southern third of the island forced defenders to redeploy piecemeal, fracturing command and resulting in attritional losses. Following Iwo Jima's pacification by 26th of March 1945, American forces gained a forward staging area for B-29 Superfortress emergency landings and tactical fighter escort, shortening logistical supply lines by over 1,600 kilometers. Lessons learned from infantry weapon improvisation influenced planning for the Okinawa landings, Operation Iceberg, where firepower concentration and breach tactics were prioritized. Iwo Jima's reduction marked a crucial inflection point, limiting Japan's ability to contest continued Allied advances and accelerating the closing decade of the Pacific conflict. If Corporal Tony Stein's innovation and breakthrough had failed, Company A likely would have suffered catastrophic delays and increased casualties in its attempt to secure the southeast landing zones. Without the suppressive capabilities of the Stinger, Japanese pillbox crossfire would potentially have inflicted over 25% higher losses on the assault wave, leading to loss of initiative by 1st Battalion, 28th Marine Regiment, and delayed advances up to 24 hours. This disruption would have allowed the 109th Division defenders to organize potent counterattacks and possibly reinforce Mount Suribachi's approaches. Medical evacuation corridors would have faced bottlenecks, with at least 2 evacuation teams delayed or lost, resulting in higher mortality among wounded Marines. The inability to clear interconnected strongpoints would have prolonged softening up bombardment phases, expending over 300 additional tons of naval ordnance with questionable effect. The net result, the entire regiment's advance would stall below the 200-meter line, jeopardizing the timeline for the strategic flag raising atop Suribachi. Comparing the operational gains of Company A at Iwo Jima's southern sector against the 2nd Battalion, 6th Marine Regiment's performance during the Tarawa landings in November 1943 underscores the impact of rapid fortification breaches. While Tarawa's assault required 76 hours and cost the Marines over 1,000 killed to traverse 2.3 kilometers squared, the 28th Marine Regiment at Iwo Jima advanced 1.8 kilometers squared in under 48 hours, while containing casualties in Stein's sector to under 120. Tarawa's Japanese pillboxes, left intact for hours due to lack of concentrated suppressive fire, stalled American advances at every tidal obstacle. In contrast, the ability of a single Marine with an improvised Stinger weapon to disrupt interlocking fields of fire at Iwo Jima was a clear deviation from the attritional stalemates of prior amphibious assaults. This tactical flexibility redefined what small unit leadership and ad hoc innovation could achieve on a battlefield defined by static defense. Modern historiography remains divided but steadily converges on the assessment that the early successes of the 28th Marine Regiment, underpinned by Corporal Stein's actions, are underrated relative to the more widely publicized flag-raising event of 23 February 1945. Recent studies, such as the 2011 USMC After Action Review, emphasize that the strategic gains in the first 48 hours reduced projected overall Marine casualties by an estimated 11% and accelerated the timetable for securing airfield objectives. While the iconic image atop Suribachi dominates memorial narratives, operational assessments of Stein's personalized weapon and tactics have fueled increased scholarly interest in frontline improvisation. Most analysts now rate these improvisations as critical force multipliers, transforming what could have been a drawn-out siege into a deterministic and systematic defeat of entrenched Japanese defenses. After the cessation of hostilities and the occupation of Iwo Jima on 26 March 1945, the 1st Battalion, 28th Marine Regiment, and supporting line companies underwent significant demobilization. Many surviving members returned stateside by December 1945 for reunification at Camp Pendleton and eventual discharge. Combat-tested elements of the 5th Marine Division participated in occupation duties in Japan through early 1946 before official deactivation on February 5, 1946. The 28th Regiment's personnel received campaign ribbons and decorations in group presentations at the battalion's final formation, closing their wartime chapter with formal muster-out ceremonies that spring. Command structure dispersal was immediate, with key officers reassigned to peacetime training billets across the United States. The ground where Company A fought is marked today by several enduring memorials, most notably the black granite obelisk at the base of Mount Suribachi and annual ceremonies along Motoyama. Airfield Number 1. The names of Corporal Tony Stein and his fellow Marines are etched into the Pacific War Memorial's Iwo Jima panel, located near the summit of Mount Suribachi. American remains, including some from the 28th Regiment, are interred at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu and the Punch Bowl Crater. Japanese and American commemorative plaques dot the central landing beaches, while battlefield guideposts outline the pillbox clusters that witnessed the initial breakthrough. Each February, survivors and families gather for remembrance at the island's United States-Japan Joint Memorial. The final reckoning of the Iwo Jima battle underscores a cost measured in 6,821 American and over 18,000 Japanese dead for a vital foothold in the Pacific. The sacrifice of units such as Company A, catalyzed by individual acts of frontline innovation, fundamentally altered the strategic calculus of the war's closing campaigns. The ground gained at exorbitant cost secured operational objectives that shortened the Pacific struggle and preserved countless bomber crews in the months that followed. The legacy remains indelibly etched into stone, memorial, and doctrine as a reminder of the brutal price of island warfare and the enduring value of courage under fire. Thank you for joining us in uncovering the untold story of 8 barefoot runs, 1,200 rounds, the illegal gun Marines feared. If this account of ingenuity and sacrifice on Iwo Jima challenged what you thought you knew about World War II, consider sharing these lessons with others, because history is more than images. It's the stories of those who changed the outcome against all odds. Subscribe for more rigorously researched frontline narratives and help keep the memory of these extraordinary individuals alive for the next generation. Your engagement ensures these pivotal moments are never forgotten.